Got a 2017 Range Rover, Land Rover EVOQUE. It's got a 2.0 turbo in there. Kind of remind me of like a Ford motor. I don't know much about these. So I don't know. It looked like a Ford motor to me. Call me crazy. What happened with this? It had some heating issues with the interior. So the car didn't overheat or anything. Temperature was great. It just the heat did not work well in the cab. And over the course of a month and a half, I wound up changing. I flushed the heater core out, and that worked for a little while. Then she said, "Hey, the heat's not working again." Came back. I put a thermostat in it. It worked for a while. And mind you, on both of these occasions, I test drive everything I do for make sure, verify all my repairs. I drove the vehicle the second time, like when I did the thermostat, for 2 days and make sure everything was fine. Then for some strange reason, every time she gets it back, there's a problem. So it's back like a third time. There's a code in the HVAC, and I'm gonna show you what I found out when I saw the code in there, because I was looking through the code, to be honest with you, because there's a couple of codes in various modules, and I just looked through them. Then they weren't all telling on each other, and that's why I'm like, okay, there's no actuating codes in the HVAC. There's no low voltage codes in all the other modules, and so I'm just like, I'm just going to ignore it. But let me show you what I found out, and let me just bring up a suggestion, what I'm thinking is going on with this. And I know it doesn't sound with 100% conviction, but we do need to address all codes in the module before jumping to any other conclusion. Okay, so in all fairness, I mean, I just did the basics, flushed the heater core because it was intermittent. It worked and it didn't work. So, but usually when heater cores fail, they are consistently failing. All right, so when a heater core failed, the very specific thing that will happen, assuming that you went through all the basic checks as far as making sure the actuators and stuff are working fine, is when the car is stationary and the blower motor is on very low, the car is at normal operating temperature, you allow the engine to run for about 5 minutes, get the heater core saturated with heat. You turn the blower motor on high, you feel heat coming out the vent, and it gets cold and it can't sustain that heat. It's a radiator that inside the car basically that needs to be able to support that. It needs to be able to take in all that heat, and you're just that blower is, you're just feeling the heat exchange difference. That's it, because all that coolant's going through that heat exchanger. The blower motor is blowing the air through that heat exchanger, just like the radiator. When the radiator is hot, the fans come on, you put your hand behind here, you feel that heat. Same principles. So the heater core is fine. Thermostat, I just changed that because it's like, well, if it's intermittent, let's just go ahead and do this, even though the temperature was normal and well regulated. Let's go in the car. So when I got the car this morning, this is the code that came up. Let's see if it'll zoom in. B1B72-11 is Lin BUS 1 power supply circuit. All right, so let me show you what else was going on here. Let me go back. Turn this. How do you turn this car off? So let's go back out. Let's go back out. Let's go to topology. Now, mind you, like I said, all these other modules didn't have any low voltage codes, so I'm just like, okay, I'm not worried about it. ABS has a problem. Let's go to report. Skip. The ABS has a problem because of the rear parking brake. All right, right actuator, electronic parking brake fault, and okay, all-wheel drive, we got a high-speed CAN bus issue. Then we got antenna circuit, and then this is the main thing with our Lin BUS power supply, intermittent. So this one, the high-speed. Let me just go into the all-wheel drive control module real quick. Let me go up in here, pull this information. Let's go to trouble code, and I should get a freeze frame right there. Hit that snowflake. Let's look up in here real quick. So that came on with 14 volts. All right. Okay, so we have 11 volts here, the ECM. Okay, normally you get below 9 volts and you start having some problems, but let's stay on track. I'm just going to keep that as a grain of salt here. I want to clear these codes out. Oh, before I do that, let's go into the HVAC. Go trouble codes. Our little snowflake. The freeze frame data is going to take the screenshot when the issue manifests. Just give us context. So we had 11.25 volts at the main ECM, and look at this, the module voltage supply is at 7.6 volts. So just make mental note of that. Let's go back out. I'm gonna clear this code and see if it's an immediate comeback. It should be an immediate comeback. All right, so I'm gonna read codes. There's nothing, but let's start it up. Let's read codes. Okay, there's nothing there. Let's go to live data. Let's go to voltage. Control module voltage right at the bottom. It's looking a little erratic now. It's no big deal. All right, let's shut it down for a little bit. Let's see if we can get this down to 7 volts. See if we can get that code to generate. I'm gonna turn the car in the on position, simulate a load. Let's slow this down a little bit. Let's start it up. All right, let's see if a code got generated. Some of the codes got generated there. Shut it down again, try it again. So pretty much what'll happen, I mean, the car starts up great. Like it really starts up extremely well. It's just when it hits a threshold, with the voltage being extremely low, that's when our issues happen. So pretty much this is just the battery supply problem, despite the vehicle starting up well. It wasn't generating the code right now because it had adequate supply. There's a lot of wiggle room with this particular vehicle, but if it sits overnight, the cold will have a stress the battery out. The cold components become stiff, the oil becomes thick, and it's hard for it to start. So when that happens at 12 volts, it's going to drag it down even more and generate a code. So we're 11.8 right now. We dropped. Let's see if we got the code to come up. Nope. There we go. There we go. It happened. So this is only due because of the voltage being low. So even though I'm seeing, even though this is 7.8 volts ECM voltage supply. So even though it may see it during startup, it just drops and creates the problem. So pretty much this it's going to need a battery. I mean, or a really good charge. And I'm going to try to charge it first before I replace it. The battery do look pretty old. So Lin BUS 1 power supply circuit. Now another thing that can happen with Lin BUS is the system can get taken down, and I'm going to show you that that's not the case because I have my oscilloscope hooked up. And where are we? Let's not do that. There we go. Take this. Let me get this set up for you. So I got my Lin BUS hooked up. I'm going to show you what I'm hooked up at too, so there's no confusion. Right at the top Let me see if I can get this out. So right at the top here, there's a humidity sensor up in there. What it is, I'm just pierced in. Let's see here. So I'm tied in on the ground on the far left, and in the center, the green and white is going to be the Lin BUS. So that's where I'm tied in, and this is the waveform that we're getting. And it's a nice square wave. I mean, it's making battery voltage. It's around what, 13 or 14, somewhere around about that. And we have really good square waves. This is not bringing the system down. As a matter of fact, let me see if I can get a capture for you so you can see what it's like. This here, let's clear the code out. Now, ideally, I would want to be on voltage 2, but I'm just going to leave it on the waveform to show you that the Lin BUS, how that's affected. Let's go back here to the scope. We're going to press play. We're going to slow it down a little bit. 200 milliseconds. All right, let's start it up. Let's see if that code gets generated. Pause it. Go back. Go back. There we go. If I can. See if I can bring this over. Oh, it's not gonna. That other one is off the page, but that's the lowest value. So I mean, I'm trying to. Let me see if I can. There you go. Let's take that one. Anyway, but you can see from this being 12 volts, let's take this and drop this down right there, 12. You can see from 12 volts, I mean, how low this wound up getting. And let's go to the lowest point here. So number 2 had hit about 5.98 volts on the Lin network. You know, so there's our problem. That's the lowest, but I mean, I'm pretty sure it was like an average voltage. So yeah, about 6.89 volts. So the problem is, it's just the battery. That's what was causing this issue. And it just need to be a charged battery. Let me show you I'm gonna charge the battery up for a little while on a trickle charger, and then I'm gonna go back and do the same test. Can't remember if I showed you, but the code did come back. So just to let you know that, I don't know if I went right to that, but the code did come back during that startup. So that starting sequence did generate this code. I got the battery hooked up. And unfortunately, the charger is saying 100% immediately after hooking the battery up, which is not a good sign. Looking at the battery, it is the original Lin Rover battery. I mean, the capacity of this battery is just not up to standards. It's just, even though it starts the car upgrade, this is a little 4-cylinder, this is a big battery, it's just not able to hold the capacity to support those loads when needed. Well, that's pretty much all it is that we're dealing with. But I'm going to let it discharge as much as it can on this charger until the charger shut down, and then we'll go back and do this same test and see how stable our Lin network is. So while the battery is doing its thing, let me explain the logic here. I'm assuming logically, when voltage goes low, components tend to go haywire. And I'm not sure if this is some sort of protocol or not, but I'm assuming here that when the voltage goes low, because of those variables I mentioned, cold, startup, it's winter now, it's like 29 degrees right now, and in the morning time it's going to be probably about 20 degrees. The age of the battery, oil being thick, the load, the demand for this battery, it can't keep up with the requirements. So being that this AC is getting cold at times, if that Lin network goes wonky, And that HVAC module, depending on how though it interacts with the blend door actuator, it can just get stuck. I'm thinking that because of the, you saw how the Lin network performed. When it goes bad, goes down like that, it just like, you know what, screw it. I need to calibrate, and I can't calibrate. I'm stuck cold. Forget it. And that's probably what she's dealing with in the morning time when she turns that heat on, because that's automatic temperature settings. So if it goes from low to high to go through a calibration process, and it can't because it probably stays on cold, then it just stays there. That's my logic behind what's going on with this particular instance, why it's an intermittent problem. It works for me, but not for her. So, and because another thing is, if being that I shut it down and started back up, she probably may be sitting in the car at home on the phone talking to somebody with the key in the on position, but not running in the alternator charging the battery. And it's draining the battery. So instead of it holding at a 12.3, 12.5 state, the key is in the on position, it's probably holding at 11.9, drain the battery down. And then all the things that I mentioned, that load during that initial startup, that's it. You know, so that's my, I don't want to call it a conjecture, but that's what I'm assuming based on reasoning here. So let's let this charge up for a little bit, and it's still just saying full. The green light haven't went off yet. So it's obviously doing something that I don't. Let it charge up and we'll go back over it. Now, I'm not a big firm believer in battery testers. You know, I'd have it. I just don't really like, we saw the voltage and we can test it, but we heard it start over extremely well. We already know what we're dealing with. It's the old battery. Charger just finished. And it only took about 10 minutes, which is, again, a bad sign because this battery is just going to be shot. Let's start the car up, see how the CAN network responds. So I got the code cleared. I just cleared everything in the computer here. It's, remember, we had an issue with the brake caliber. We're making 12.7 volts right now. And let's just go ahead and run to our oscilloscope. Clear some of this screen up, slow it down just a little bit. All right, let's start it up. Let's go back. So we did dip down to 7 volts there. Let's see if a code got generated. Yeah, no code got generated here. Another thing I could do is just put another battery to it, like a jump box or something, you know, see how that responds with it. I want to see how stable I can get it if I had like a better battery. I don't know why I did that. Let me put a booster battery to it and see if I can get that to stabilize a little more. Now, mind you, this takes more average voltage. So we probably dip down, probably average about 8.2 volts or something. It's not going to capture that load, that drop off, but more of the average voltage over time. So this is a lot better. So I got a waveform saved right now. What I'm gonna do, I'm just gonna show you how to save this and overlap it if you have a Maxi Sys also. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna go to this folder, go to save waveform, and you're gonna put in the model information. So it's the Land Rover, Range Rover EVOQUE 2017 other. And you can put some data in there. Lin BUS, good startup. All right, let's leave that right there. And what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna drain the battery down because I didn't get a bad one. And we're gonna get a capture of that, and then I'm gonna show you how to overlap them. So just to show you, while I'm in the midst of draining this battery down, there's no codes that were generated in the HVAC. So that low voltage code did not come back. So that was a good waveform capture. I'm gonna drain this battery down to about 11.8, as low as I can get it, and then we'll get a bad startup, and I'm gonna show you how to overlap them. All right, got the blower motor running. Let's try this, see if we can get a bad capture. I don't know why I start up and shut it down immediately, but let's see if the code generated. Yep, there's the code. Okay, let's go back to our capture. I don't know why I cut it off so early. I'm gonna save this the same way. So I'm going to clear both of these. We're going to open the waveforms. So went to the channel and just cleared out. Open waveform. We're going to open one, go back and open the other as load as reference. And now they're overlapped. And you can see at the top line here on the top horizon, that's where our voltage dropped, which was fine, did not generate a code. And then at the second one, look how much lower that is. It looked like it got around about 5 volts, and it dropped when it dropped. And look how long it took for the red trace to build up to normal battery voltage. Right here. And then look how long it took for the blue trace that was bad to build up to battery voltage. I mean, it was a whole, well, even though it wasn't like much, but you can see that it was like double the time, like about half a second. Yeah, I want to say about half a second, but it was still longer than what it would have been if it wasn't a bad battery. So, I mean, this is pretty much, it's just gonna need a battery to fix this code. And like I say, logically, if this is the case, then this is what's going to cause the blend door and the heating system to not operate properly, because it just can't properly calibrate itself. So with all that said, it just seemed like a low battery is creating this issue that we're dealing with. And the only way to know, honestly, is just it's a test of time. I gotta let this kind of ride out the way it is. The main thing is to understand that if there's a code present, fix the codes first and reassess. And again, I mean, the context is when I would have the car, it's perfectly fine. There's something obviously she's doing that's different. And the only variable is, well, she might be sitting in the car. She's a lady, key in on position on the phone. Battery's obviously low. We saw how the code get generated. The logic behind things not being calibrated properly is there. So I'm just going to say just going to need a battery in this particular case. So if you have this problem with your Land Rover and it's just the heat is in and out, intermittent, and you flush the heater core, replace the thermostat, and you're still having problems, look in the codes in the module, see what codes are coming up, and fix those first. I'm going to recommend we replace the battery. Just know, again, there's a big disclaimer here. It happens with her. It never happens on me. This is the only variable. I'll definitely up the description if anything happened. But hit that link, subscribe to the channel, stay informed, how to ritual some work. I'll see you next one.